Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to day two of the Tower Exchange. First up this morning, we have a panel discussion with a very exciting team here. Core topic being improving operational efficiency and site performance. Just to introduce myself, I'm Spencer Crawford-White, the Technical Director and owner of Uratus, a technical consultancy. And I've been working in the sector for 25 years, helping tower companies, mobile operators around the world with operations and efficiencies, mainly structural and space allocation. But this topic is very close to my heart. So before we go more into the detail, what I'm going to do is ask the panel here to introduce themselves. Many of them will be well known to you anyway. So we'll just cycle round and get a bit of an introduction. And we'll start with Lara, if you could start the process of introduction.
Thank you, Spencer. So my name's Lara Cody. I work for Helios Towers, working for Helios for the last 5 years. My role there is Group Head of Performance Engineering. So this is a topic close to my heart, looking at the performance of all of our sites across the many OpCos across Africa. Thanks, Lara. Pleasure to have you with us. Samuel, if we could move to you next, please, sir.
Hi, yes, I'm Samuel Tannen. I'm the Operations Director of Oman Tower Company, which is a fairly new tower co, and we're starting from scratch with the build-to-suit for the two existing mobile operators here in Oman, plus Vodafone, which is supposed to launch soon. And we have a couple of hundred towers already live to date, and a lot in the pipe.
Excellent. Thank you, Samuel. Now, Saeed, if we can turn to you, please, in Tawal.
Thank you very much, Spencer. My name is Saeed Shahri. I'm really happy to be here and part of this panel discussion. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Tawal. Tawal is the 2 years old company. We are owning now more than 15,000 sites. It's a carve-out asset from our mother company, STC. I have an experience of more than 20 years in the telecom industry overall.
Thank you, Saeed. Alistair, could we introduce yourself now, please?
Yeah, good morning, Spencer. Good morning, co-panelists. My name is Alistair Munro. I'm the CEO of Rise Energy. I've been in the Middle East in the power and water infrastructure market for the past 35 years. And in the past 5 or 6 years, have focused on decentralized power and the formation of Rise Energy, who has more than 500 sites within the telecom sector, and we now have a major focus on providing renewable energy solutions to the telecom industry sector as a whole.
Very good. That's very apt for this conversation topic, and I always save the best till last. A good friend of mine, Mr. Gordon Porter, if you could introduce.
Good morning, Spencer. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gordon Porter. I work with IHS. We operate in 9 jurisdictions. We have around 29,000 towers under ownership and management, predominantly focused on Africa, operating in Nigeria and 4 other markets, but also recently expanding into the Middle East with an operation in Kuwait. And you may have seen the recent press release as we continue to expand into KSA. Also looking in and expanding into our operations in Latin America. But I think, you know, IHS is founded on operating in emerging and challenging markets. And right to the core of our operating ethos is efficiency and improving our operation performance every day. So again, this is a subject that's really, you know, core to us as well. So looking forward to the discussion, and again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Gordon. So I think you'll all agree, a fantastic panel that we have here today. So operational efficiency and site performance to different people mean many different things, but I think we'll all agree that COVID impact that we've suffered through the last 12 months, or maybe a little bit more, has really been a dynamic shift in the way we look at operational efficiency. And so we're going to start on there before looking at some more of the infrastructure elements, and just ask the question, what lessons have been learned during this COVID pandemic, and how have we applied some efficiencies, obviously with the restrictions we've had of travel, of getting to our sites and generally mobilizing around the world. Gordon, I'm going to start with you, seeing as we finished off as well. How have IHS used this to enhance their efficiency, or what challenges have you had?
Thank you, Spencer. In terms of the impact on COVID and our operating practices, particularly at an operational level, we've actually seen a increase in uptime. We've actually seen, our MTTR is held steady. To be totally honest, a lot of the activities in the field are always remote anyway. So the guys at the sharp end are actually pretty much used to being self-sufficient. Some of the markets imposed curfews and access restrictions at certain times of the day. And that just meant an extra layer of administration to make sure that we had the appropriate approvals and permissions to move around. Again, we had to work closer and tighter with some of our partners to make sure that the supply chain, particularly where we're reliant on diesel, was robust, and there was an additional level of forward planning. But overall, right at the very sharp end, the guys executing in the field, we didn't see a huge impact given the way that the guys operate already.
Mm-hmm. Lara, if I can ask you the same question, obviously having similar market presence as IHS and predominantly African, but with a head office in Dubai, how have you managed have you seen any benefits rather than negatives to this pandemic?
Was that for me?
Yeah,
sorry, I dropped off there. Sorry, my signal dropped off. Could you just repeat the question? I just caught the last part.
Yeah, I was just saying, Gordon's spoken about obviously the African and Middle Eastern operations. You're in a similar sort of area in Africa. So Africa, you do tower, you do power. Has this driven some efficiency, like as a positive factor? Because I think we're all under more demand from mobile sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just echoing some of the points there that Gordon made, we actually saw an improvement as well on the power uptime. I think, consolidating the activities that the teams are actually performing on the sites, there's been a need to look at what's the value add activities that they're doing and can they collectively consolidate those activities into one visit. Additionally, it's not just, the teams working remotely on the ground. It's always obviously been the group office not being able to visit the opcos, spend time with them. So we've heavily relied on a lot of the, online communication portals and channels. But I think the very nature of our organisation, having the opcos working remotely from a group perspective, meant that we actually had the infrastructure in place to be able to support this type of remote working and communication. So I think, it kind of emphasised that the platforms and the infrastructure that we have in place actually supported that. And I think also just echoing some of the points around partnerships with suppliers, it proactively made us look at the risk exposure that we had in the various opcos, making sure that we had enough materials and from some of the suppliers looking at fuel. So it really kind of made us assess the risk and put in contingencies where we needed to.
No, thanks, Lara. I'll come to the more Middle Eastern tower codes in a minute, but I'd like to sort of broach Alistair now. So you've heard there both from Gordon and Lara, the power uptimes have improved, but have you seen a spike, a higher request rate because of COVID?
Yeah, we have, and it's been quite interesting in that there's been a plus and a negative on this situation. Very interestingly, we've had a lot more access to senior executives in the telco sector because we're doing calls like this, and we're spending less time sitting on planes and more time actually doing activity. So there has been an upside in that side of the business, but there's still, you do miss the personal touch, and we've got a bigger pipeline of activity now, but probably less of a deliverable in in the field situation, because the deliverable does require travel and it does require that physical presence. I think Lara's point also regarding supply chain has been really, really important for us. Our supply chain in Europe went down last year for many months, and it's really made us consider where we're servicing a high volume market with small products like the one you see in the background there, that the supply chain really needs to be much tighter and more localized and strategically aligned to the business to be able to meet the volume requirements of the industry sector. So there has been a lot of lessons learned. We've also seen a big difference between developed and developing countries regarding the approach towards COVID protection of staff. We've had a lot of shutdowns and clients refusing site access, for example, in European markets, just because they've enforced their own policies, whereas it's been more flexible, not necessarily the right way, but more flexible in developing countries. So we have seen a big divergence in that area.
Excellent. Thanks, Alistair. Samuel, in Oman, I've not really tracked how the COVID impact has affected you guys, but are you experiencing similar restrictions, and what benefits have you seen as well, efficiency?
I'm struggling to find the benefits. Yeah, we've been affected quite badly. We've had a lot of restrictions, and also our activity now is mainly building towers. So we've seen disruption in all the administrative works because all the ministries have been requested to work from home. So obtaining lands and permits has been dramatically delayed. Manufacturing and delivery of towers has been delayed. We've had several months of each region being locked down from each other, so sending our teams to the regions was a challenge. We also have the particularity that one of the regions is separated from the rest of the country by UAE, and the border has been closed for a year now. So we had to ship everything by boat. We even have some sites to be built actually in an enclave, which is inside UAE, so it's only reachable by air. That's also not easy. And then we've had impact on our sales because of the economic crisis, general economic crisis hitting the country. So the two existing operators have slowed down their rollout. And I'm sure they're also facing logistical difficulties in delivering the sites in the pipe, reaching the location. So we've had a slowdown on sales as well. We've had difficulties to bring staff. At some time we had a shortage of qualified riggers in the country with the impossibility to bring more in and get visas and so on. So it's been a real challenge. I'm not sure if there are any benefits actually. Yeah.
Well, let's discuss some of those in a minute, hopefully. So, Saeed, we'll come to you now. Saudi's a large landmass, and you've got many, many thousands of towers. You also have the affiliation with STC. So I know Tawal are very technologically driven, so I'm sure you found some efficiencies in your portfolio.
Yeah, definitely, Spencer. I mean, I think, as said by the colleagues, that there is definitely a bright side of the COVID and the pandemic, and we learned from this pandemic situation that all the organization that has been digitally awake and digitally ready, and the organization with a very clear business continuity plan and system around that, are the most likely organization to recover quickly from pandemic. We had this experience with Tawal. We had our digital plan in place. We act immediately. We were also pleased by having the digital strategy of the government and the country overall that was ready and was facilitating and making it easy for us for deployment. Speaking about the difficulty that was mentioned by Sami, for example, we had always struggle with the arrangement and engagement with the municipalities. The municipalities have accelerated the digital media of applying for the for permission. They announce quickly what they call it baladi. This is a digital channel to apply for municipalities. From our end, also we have all these work from home that have benefited a lot, and I think it is a lesson learned that this concept is something that will sustain and will enhance really the way we all conduct the business. We also learned that it's not necessarily to have that centralized way of operation. You can have still the decentralization of operation. You can always work virtual. So these fancy tower operating centers and command centers will eventually turns into a work from home like way of conducting the command centers. I think also we had the chance to enhance the digital way and means of communication with our customers and with our partners and with the supply chain suppliers. And this help in using more efficient our resources. And I think this is something will sustain going forward. So I think this is the bright side of the COVID, despite all the negatives that has been mentioned.
Yeah. For me, for the last 12 months. Sorry, Samuel, please.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually there are some upsides to this crisis that we've seen in Oman. It's related to the general economic crisis that the country is facing. We have a number of government organizations which used to have generous budgets to roll out their own telecommunication networks and building their own towers, and they were not interested by our services, and now they are approaching us to rent towers and share towers rather than build their own. And even the mobile operators, to a certain extent, they were keen to keep building their own towers because controlling the market and things like that. And now their rollout budget is almost limited to buying the base stations, as we understand. So they are more keen to come to us also as well. That's one of the positive impacts, I would say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the last 12 months, my last visit was, funnily enough, to Dubai and to the event last year, and then I did a trip in Asia and came back. But for the last 12 months, I literally haven't had a moment to stop. It has been so busy because everybody is looking at M&A activity, seeing the potential value in a potential economic crisis that's coming, looking at making operational efficiency and trying to look at technology. Now, that takes us into my second question, really. There is a lot of noise, and you probably see it all over LinkedIn and the media, of digitization, digital transformation, use of digital twin technology, drone capture or LiDAR capture to better represent our sites. So what I wanted to do was sort of look at that. Do you think it will be an assistance and an improvement of our network efficiency, the way we look at our sites? But also, I've been looking at it for 2 years. What are the hang-ups, the hold-ups of wider adoption of that type of technology, from your opinions? So, Samuel, seeing as you're last to speak, what's your view on digitizing your infrastructure by 3D modeling or digital twin?
Well, I would say we're not much there yet, and we have the chance that we have built to suit. We are also managing existing portfolios, but most of our activity is on our own towers, which are brand new. So we know very well, exactly where the antennas are, which is the tower capacity, where there is space. So even though we haven't, spent a lot on ERPs and things like that, because we're still small and we are focusing on, trying to break even before spending too much, we've been able to operate quite smoothly. And because when we get a co-location request, we know exactly, because everything is fresh, we know exactly where there is space, where the towers, if there's available wind load capacity and so on. But recently we've entered into a number of management agreement for existing portfolios where sometimes we have less data, but we haven't had an awful lot of collocation requests so far. So of course, we're looking at everything that's available in the market. We want, if we're gonna, invest in IT and these kind of software support, we want to take the right one from the first choice. So we're looking at everything, and we're waiting for the right time to get started. Maybe when we have a bit more size.
Yeah, I've noticed that adoption of this type of technology is predominantly focused around legacy data that is available. Would you agree? I mean, if you have good legacy data, it's less important to digitize because you've got access to that information, whereas some older portfolios where we're not too sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, Saeed, I've worked with Tawal and I've looked at a couple of opportunities and spoke to your colleagues last year at the Dubai event and about the use of drones and UAV capture. So how are you engaging with that, and what are the biggest blockers for you?
Yeah, excellent, Spencer. But before answering that, just looking back to your question, because for me, your question is concerning about two parts: the digital part of the and what you call it noise. That I don't call it a noise so far. It is a heard voice now, because I think digital now become a reality. We moved from speaking about does the digital will enable efficiency or not, to what things can be done and how to can maximize benefit from digital and digital hacks and digital initiatives to enable more the efficiency. And in Tawal, we have this in mind, and we have even started multiple initiatives. There is under development now 3 hacks and initiatives around the digital, around the customer journey and around the NIMPL and automated operating center, and also around the landlord journey across. And we believe by number and dollar sign that these hacks and initiatives will definitely bring a benefit for us in terms of efficiency, because efficiency is the things that we all look around, especially the tower, to bring even further value to the industry. This is from one angle. The other angle, looking at the digital twins, overall, the digital twins as a concept have started in some sophisticated technology like the healthcare and the manufacturing industry, where the digital twins will play a role there to accelerate the time to market and to bring that targeted efficiency, and supposed in some cases to be even subsidized by the government. And from that, it will also extend to the telecom and telecom industry. And specifically looking at your question, yes, in Tawal we are looking carefully at this drone application. We have multiple proof of concept with 2 companies so far. One of them is one of the subsidiaries companies for STC, that they are driving this going forward. And we have a long discussion around that, and we are seeking the benefit. However, we are looking carefully at it, not to drive more complexity and bring, because all the industry are afraid of this technology overkill and complexity that would be brought by this digital and digital twins. So yes, it is there something. Maybe it is not close or soon yet, but definitely it will drive further the efficiency going forward. We are looking carefully at it, and we will be seeking the benefit going forward, especially in this remote acceptance of the sites, remote preventive maintenance of the sites. With this increase of IoT application and IoT sensors and use of the IoT, this will also enable more that volume of market that will accelerate also this digital twin and digital twin technology.
Yeah, I think the industry as a whole has to justify the value proposition for this digitization a lot more. Lara, I know that you've got great legacy data. I know because I've helped Helios in the past create it, obviously not blowing my own trumpet, but with Delmeco I used to work with. I've also had a couple of chats about, digitizing your portfolio, but I'd love to hear from you of what you're currently considering and how you think it might work.
Yeah, so I mean, drones specifically are things that are on our radar, but it's not particularly something that's got a huge amount of focus for us at the moment. I think when you look at digitalization, there's so much data. One of the things that we're very cautious of is it's not about the volume of data that you have, but it's the specific data that you have. And it's really important that we focus on the data that's important to us at the moment. So that's a real kind of focus for us. And I think when we're looking at kind of understanding that legacy area of data, we have got a huge volume of that data, and it supports our processes and our organization today. I think the main focus for us around the digitalization journey is really understanding our sites in a little bit more real time, and getting that automation piece kind of aligned. So kind of coming back to that, it's the specific data that we want to get rather than the quality, and focusing on that. For us, it's really been about building the business as usual processes around that data manually, to make sure that any automation and digitalization can be sustained. Because we're very aware that, adoption within an organization is just as important as the technology and getting that data back. So it's a big piece for us in making sure that we've got that manual adoption before any sort of technology is introduced, so that we can manage that change piece across the teams.
Yeah, I suppose you've got the added issues of general logistics and mobilizations of this technology as well, needing regular charging and powering, but also massive data sets that come from this digital information transferring back to your core. So,
Yeah.
In future that may change, but that's a consideration I'm sure you've had to look at.
Yeah, it's I think the biggest constraints that we face is the data volume from the large number of sites, the large number of assets, but it's also getting that data back on a frequent basis. Communications, the very nature, the fact that there's such a high volume of different communication devices that you're having to manage and make sure you've got the reliability of. So that really in itself is quite a challenge, quite a focus for us.
Yeah. Gordon, you're in a similar set of markets, obviously Nigeria being the biggest one in Africa, and I know that you've looked at the drone technology yourself, but generally on whole digitization, fear factors around pushing too much technology in this digital age. What's your theories on this?
I think a lot of what Lara was saying chimes. To be totally honest, with the offering that we have in Africa being tower and power, at the core of our operation, there's a lot of information that we need to collect around the energy sources, to make sure that we've got the right amount of diesel on site, to make sure that the hybrid systems and the solar systems are operating effectively, to make sure we're getting a return on that investment. So there's a lot of that data, and that kind of stems a lot from the remote site monitoring tools that are available. What we are seeing increasingly in the past, the remote site monitoring used to be the product. Now the product is the data and the analytics that support the analysis of that data as it moves forward. So, and again, talking about COVID in the previous question, I think workforce management is playing a much greater role, and we've seen our network operations centers, which are still based in the OpCos, moving very much from a sort of a reactive fault fixing role to a much more sort of proactive role in extending asset life and making sure that the preventative steps are taken. The questions around drones and the digital twin is a very interesting one. As you know, we've looked at this in huge detail, and I think there are a lot of great case studies about how this has delivered success in certain markets, and a lot of these kind of apply to the perhaps the larger tower companies in maybe the US, Europe, and what have you. What we've seen with drones is a number of things. Our models are very, very price sensitive on the OpEx front. And if we're not able to spot and identify the precise savings at an operational level. I mean, you know, in the US, some of the case studies showed, well, actually, we were able to retrain people as UAV operatives. And over time, that headcount would reduce and it was a meaningful saving. We've not been able to kind of identify that level of savings. We've also found that there's still a degree of reluctance to wholly embrace some of the outputs in the engineering sector. So if we're doing a structural analysis, for example, great, you know, the drone can you know, identify what equipment's where on the tower, but ultimately we're still seeing a lot of the structural engineers who've got to put their names to this analysis. They take a lot of comfort in the old-fashioned way of working, maybe going themselves, you know, doing the tower mapping and that sort of stuff. So we need our partners and the other people in the ecosystem to fully embrace some of these changes. As I say, the OpEx side, I still feel that the cost of the drone activity is too high to be compelling. Our ultimate aim is to kind of absolutely embed it in the core of what we do every day. So every time anybody goes to site to, you know, perform whatever function, the drone flies an automated visit, captures that data, and then away we go. And at the prices that have kind of been touted around, it makes it difficult to kind of do that. I think it's coming, and I think, you know, it starts as well at the due diligence stage. You know, you kind of mentioned the point that if you've got great data to start with, the battle of maintaining that is easier than climbing the hill to get data for, you know, accurate data on the legacy side. So it's coming. I think we, in the markets that we operate, are finding it probably more difficult to implement than we hoped on the drone and the digital twin side.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've worked on this problem for the last 2 years, as you know, working with Delmec and Keelan, and now looking at the drone application. And we're trying to get that engineering full suite to justify that cost value saving. And it's close, and watch this space. So if anyone wants to know more, give me a shout. But without going into too much more detail on the digitization, I want to get an impact from Alistair about, you know, how his systems and digital data are benefiting. And maybe you don't use drones so much, Alistair, maybe you do, but what would be your take on it?
Yeah, I like Gordon saying there, but we're more power than tower rather than the other way about. Yeah, data is important for us because when you're looking to drive those operating costs down, for us, the external data is very important because we use that and integrate that into our algorithms for doing the energy resource analysis. You know, when we're monitoring the systems, the power demand, especially in developing countries, we've spotted a lot of fuel theft through remote data management, which our customers have missed, interestingly so. But also, when we're working closely with the tower cos, sometimes they think they've got an optimal solution for power supply. And when they actually give us access to that data that they've got, we can give them that added value to show them how they can significantly drop their operating costs. From our side, we're continuously monitoring on our kit up to 700 parameters, and we're continually taking that back into our company in terms of developing the products and the services that we're offering. Some of the towers are in low wind environments, for example, so we're looking at LW type products. So there's a huge amount of that data, and I think Lara's point was there's almost too much of it. It's a question of picking and choosing that data, but certainly when you're a product development company as well as a service provider, it's very important to integrate that into the way that you work. And of course, driving operating costs down, extending maintenance periods, increasing uptime and reliability of products and services, all comes down to the OpEx of the overall system. And I think that's where we're seeing the use of data from our point of view. Also, we integrate our data into the systems that the tower cos and our clients are using. So there's that interface as well. So unfortunately, we're giving them even more data, which they then either decide that we manage or they want to do some integration and management of that themselves. So there's a lot of data around there and you have to be selective about it.
Mm. Well, we've talked about the tower and the capacity and digitizing that, and we've looked at the data from the renewable, but I want to hold with you, Alistair, and talk about that. Does renewable enable operational efficiency? You know, solar PV, you know, all these things that you've done, and in a market where there's low cost electric, we'll ask the rest of the panel who are owning the infrastructure, but, you know, give me your take on that side of things.
Yeah, it's a complicated process, and you've got such a diversity of locations and regulatory frameworks. So clearly in the off-grid and the bad grid, renewables are very strongly positioned against alternative sources. So when you're talking about traditional diesel generators or even the new advanced generators, which are being promoted by some suppliers, renewables is perfect because you've got the natural resource there. The question comes back down to the optimization of that resource. So as much as you can harvest during the solar cycle, that's still not enough to meet the tower demand. You've then got to balance out the energy storage. And in many markets, maybe not so much in this region, you've got a very clear driver to put wind into the mix because, especially in northern and southern hemispheres, your solar cycle just isn't big enough to give you that power generation capacity. So if you're looking to drive down your carbon footprint, drive down your fuel costs, extend your delivery logistical schedules, your maintenance schedules on your diesel generation equipment, then that's a very clear driver for renewables. In terms of the on-grid situation, yeah, there's no question there's a challenge in terms of competing with grid power, but there's many other drivers. You know, we've got Vision 2030 in Saudi, and we're already partnering with Tawal and KCARE program for renewable introduction, because there's a driver there in terms of environmental standards. You've got big markets like India already, government policies driven it there. But, you know, you've got not just the economics are critical, but sometimes there are regulatory and strategic decisions that companies make to integrate renewables into that mix, and we're supporting all of that.
Samuel, what's your take on the renewable option and how are you embracing it?
So most of our sites are grid connected, and we're not taking care of the uptime. So we're more a tower than a power company. However, we have a number of off-grid sites, and we're possibly going to build a number of even helicopter sites, because it's a very mountainous country, Oman. They are up today, and I think also the power efficiency, because of the cheap fuel price, has not been a focus of the telecom operators for a long time. I mean, they have most of their sites have big shelters with big air cones and big genset running 24/7 when they're off grid. There are even helicopter sites running on generators where the fuel is delivered by helicopter. And now we have some clients. We have some clients that need some microwave repeaters on top of mountains. Now we are offering, small cabinets with pure solar solutions, and they like it, obviously. Mm-hmm. But our take on power is limited. The operators do have a couple of hundred off-grid sites in Oman, which have been running on generator for a long time, and they are only now starting to look at renewable energy, and they are starting some pilot projects. It's a very sunny country, of course, so solar is usually enough, because Alistair was talking about wind. There are some windy regions. There are some wind farms in construction in the country, but the sun is extremely reliable, maybe except this extreme south region, which has a rainy season. Usually the sun is the most reliable source.
Yeah. Saeed, you would be in a similar, obviously, region, lots of sun, but are you engaged with the solar and potentially wind solutions?
Yes, definitely looking at the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, especially the either on grid or off grid, the cost of the fuel is quite cheap. So there is no drive from an efficiency or fuel cost point of view. However, as mentioned by Alistair, that the government is behind and initiatives to promote the renewable energy, and there is a target part of the 2030 vision that around 25% of the growth energy demand will be on the renewable energy. So we believe that we are part of that, and we will be benefiting from any potential subsidy from the government around that. This is from one angle. From the other angle, we are seeing an enhancement in the technology and the efficiency of the solar systems, especially on the energy storage part. We are seeing a lot of emerging technology there that will bring down the cost. It will also improve the total cost of ownership, especially with this new technology that can have longer durable lifetime. That will also enhance the business case of such initiatives. We are watching carefully that as of now, we have few sites. We have around 250 sites powered by the solar. And we have also planned and the NEOM, the NEOM new cities will be powered by the green energy. So we don't have any choice but to go green. So, and we have started also our projects recently, depending on the solar power. So the solar power will operate fully all the sites in NEOM. Now, the first phase is around 71 sites, and we will be growing as the NEOM grow. We will definitely depend on the renewable energy solution from the city itself. But during the construction of the city, we will be depending heavily on the solar power. And as said previously, the government is behind big initiatives to reduce the carbon emission and to depend on a high percentage on the renewable energy. And this will drive definitely the complete ecosystem in the country by localizing the market of this new renewable energy solution. And this is also part of the initiatives of the country, as mentioned by Alistair. This engagement with the Key Care organization is basically around pushing that from one side and also localizing this product within the country.
Excellent. Very quickly, we've only got a few minutes left. I want to go back to Alistair because we've talked about two countries that are power positive and very sunny and fuel low costs. Alistair, just quickly before we go to Gordon and Lara.
Yeah, no, I just really wanted to thank Saeed for raising that point. I just wanted to come back that one of our strategic objectives is not just obviously to introduce the technology, but it is to localize the technology and create employment, both in terms of manufacturing in line with Vision 2030 in the Kingdom and other countries. Nigeria, for example, we're looking at it, DRC, Egypt, India, as a small company, but very focused in terms of this technology sector. We can localize that manufacturing, and then that builds back into increasing the supply chain, increasing localization of employment, improving service capabilities in country. So there's a big part about localization. The days of making it centrally in Europe and shipping it around the world have gone, and we really want to be at the forefront of that, and we're pleased to be working with Saeed in the Kingdom and his team on that basis.
Cool, thanks, Alistair. So unfortunately, I'm going to give 1 minute each to Gordon and Lara. We're going to go with Gordon, save the best till last. So quickly, Gordon, just renewable energy, IHS.
I think any movement away from the reliance on diesel and diesel generation is absolutely a good thing. You know, the operational challenges that it brings, the risk that it brings to the network is huge, right down to the fact that, you know, generators need servicing, you know, the waste oil needs disposing of, and these create, you know, environmental challenges. You know, the final point that I want to make is we are engaged in a fairly significant rural telephony program. You know, we're bringing sites to the very far reaches of the Federation of Nigeria, and that is, these installations are wholly and solely solar powered, and we wouldn't be able to, you know, digitally enfranchise the people that we are if it wasn't for the use of the solar technology and you know, the supporting storage that's available. So we embrace it totally. And as a final point, any move away from diesel reduces our maintenance capex.
Thanks, Gordon. And Lara, we've saved the best bit for you. You know, power is the big problem, isn't it? A lot of the time. So Helios's strategy.
Yeah, I mean, we've just launched our sustainability strategy, and obviously a big part of that is looking at renewables. We're placing a big emphasis on reducing that fuel consumption. So yeah, I mean, at the moment, we've got a number of solar sites all across DRC, Tanzania. I guess the technology's there. The constraint that we see at the moment is just the ongoing maintenance. Some of this new technology is slightly harder to maintain, especially when you've still got the regular visits for generator maintenance alongside the solar maintenance. We do see, you know, sometimes damage. You've got the dirt that can build upon the panels as well, reducing the solar output. So it's just that journey that we're going through to make sure that we've got the right maintenance schedule in place to support that technology that we go and implement.
Thanks, Lara. Now, we're being asked to wrap up, and I'm really sad because it's been fantastic, and I'm sure we could go on for many, many hours more. I'd like to thank Tower Exchange, but more the panel that has been here. Wish you all well in the Tower Exchange community, and really looking forward to seeing you next year in person. Thank you again to Lara, Saeed, Samuel, Gordon, and Alistair. A pleasure, and see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.